If you call a spade, you'll get labeled all types of names. Imagine Scott Agnes criticizing South Carolina and Asia Wilson fans for going after Caitlin Clark during her rookie season. Imagine the backlash.
Picture this. You're the most electrifying rookie in WNBA history. You've single-handedly dragged women's basketball from the shadows into prime time. Your fans pack arenas, crash merchandise websites, and bring millions of new viewers to a league that was practically invisible just months ago. Then, the one reporter who has insider access to your team, who sits in your practices and interviews you before every game, decides to publish an article calling your supporters the dark side of fandom. Not just any supporters, the people who literally saved his job by making women's basketball relevant again. This isn't just sports journalism gone wrong. This is the story of how Scott Agnes, a trusted Indiana Fever insider, committed what might be the most spectacular act of career self-sabotage in recent memory. And the fallout? It's tearing apart everything Caitlin Clark worked to build.
In an article, he put something in there, and I don't know if he thought it was going to be a side note to his article, but you cannot call Caitlin Clark fans the dark side of the fandom. No, that wasn't the greatest or smartest idea in the world.
Agnes isn't some random blogger throwing hot takes from his basement. This man has unprecedented access to the Indiana Fever organization. He's in team practices, conducting pregame and postgame interviews, traveling with the squad. When Agnes speaks about the Fever, it carries weight because he's not just reporting. He's practically embedded with the team. His articles don't just inform fans, they often shape the narrative around what's happening inside the organization. So when someone with that level of credibility suddenly turns his keyboard into a weapon against the very fan base that made his beat relevant, people notice. Agnes built his platform covering a team that was largely ignored before Clark arrived. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a butter knife. The man who benefits most from Clark's popularity just declared war on the people who created that popularity. The article that sent shockwaves through the basketball world wasn't subtle. Agnes didn't just criticize specific behaviors or call for more respectful fan conduct. He went nuclear, labeling Clark's entire support system as the dark side. The choice of words wasn't accidental. By invoking Star Wars imagery, he painted every Clark supporter as some kind of villain with foam fingers and team jerseys.
This is really disappointing from a journalist so closely linked to the Indiana Fever organization. This is really, really disappointing, and it's really concerning in my opinion, because it is painting a 23-year-old on their team who is currently injured.
The timing made it even worse. This wasn't written after a controversial loss or during a rough patch. The Fever had just won 7 out of 9 games. Clark was playing incredible basketball, despite facing more physical abuse than any rookie in recent memory. The team was finally clicking, fans were celebrating, and Agnes chose that moment to publish what essentially amounted to a manifesto against the people cheering in the stands. Reading through the piece, you can almost feel the resentment dripping from every paragraph. Agnes didn't just criticize, he psychoanalyzed, declaring that Clark's supporters had somehow become toxic simply by existing. Not because they were harassing players or causing disruptions, but because they dared to be passionate about supporting their favorite player. Here's where the hypocrisy becomes absolutely mind-boggling. Agnes spent months watching Caitlin Clark get body-checked, elbowed in the face, and subjected to flagrant fouls that would make UFC fighters wince. During all those incidents, his keyboard remained surprisingly quiet. When Clark got shoved during layups, when she took hits that should have been ejection-worthy, when referees made calls so biased they became internet memes, Agnes said nothing.
Imagine Scott Agnes writing an article about the Reese's Pieces and all their negative vitriol, shout out to L. Duncan, that's been targeted to Caitlin Clark. Imagine the backlash he would receive. But what's the safe way out? What's the safest way to big up the Indiana Fever? Well, you tear down Caitlin Clark's fans.
But the moment fans started pointing out these obvious injustices, suddenly he found his voice. The same reporter who couldn't muster criticism when Clark was getting physically targeted had enough energy to write 1,200 words about how her supporters were the real problem. It's like watching a bystander ignore a mugging. then writing an editorial about how the victim's friends were too loud when they called for help. This selective outrage reveals something darker about Agnes's motivations. For months, he had front-row seats to the systematic targeting of the WNBA's biggest star, and he chose silence. But when those same incidents started generating criticism of the league he covers, suddenly fan passion became the enemy. It's not journalism, it's damage control disguised as moral authority. The most frustrating part? Agnes's platform exists because of Clark's success. Before she arrived, who was reading extensive coverage of Indiana Fever practices? Who cared about pre-game interviews with players on a team that struggled to fill half an arena? Clark's popularity didn't just boost WNBA ratings, it made beat reporters like Agnes relevant for the first time in their careers. Meanwhile, the Indiana Fever management has been about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. While their star player faced unprecedented scrutiny and physical targeting, while false accusations flew about her fan base, while trusted reporters turned against the people buying tickets and jerseys, management stayed silent. They've been stumbling around like characters in a Scooby-Doo episode, seemingly confused about why their fan base might be upset.
So, man, this is very sad, very disappointing. It's disgusting that Caitlin Clark has to be subjected to this nonsense. And enough's enough. That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. She needs to come out and draw the line in the sand. And it would not shock me if at some point, man, Caitlin Clark is just done with this.
This is the same organization that should be protecting their most valuable asset, the player who turned their franchise from an afterthought into a must-see attraction. Instead, they're allowing trusted media figures to attack the very people who fill their arena and boost their revenue. It's organizational incompetence on a level that would be impressive if it wasn't so maddening. The Fever's silence becomes even more damaging when you consider what Clark has endured. She's faced more physical abuse than any rookie in recent memory, dealt with constant controversy manufactured by opponents and media, and maintained incredible professionalism throughout. The least her own organization could do is have her back when trusted reporters start attacking her support system. But the Fever's failure goes deeper than just media relations. They've failed to create an environment where their star feels truly supported. Clark has handled everything with remarkable grace, but you can see the wear starting to show. How long can someone maintain that level of composure when even the people supposedly on their side are working against them? The WNBA's treatment of Clark reads like a masterclass in self-sabotage. They finally get a player who brings mainstream attention, fills arenas, and generates millions in revenue. And their response has been to allow systematic targeting that would make professional wrestling look subtle. The officiating has been so inconsistent, it's become a running joke among fans who aren't laughing.
But yesterday, they also announced the skills competition for the WNBA All-Star team. And she didn't make that either. So you argued she wasn't good for the Olympics. Your argument, though I don't buy it, but it was your argument, women's basketball, that she would be a distraction. So isn't the perfect place to put her in the skills competition?
Clark gets called for travels that her grandmother would consider generous, while opponents throw elbows with the subtlety of drunken rhinos and hear crickets from the referees. It's like watching a completely different rulebook being applied depending on which jersey someone's wearing. The creative foul calls seem designed specifically to frustrate Clark and her supporters, from flagrant calls on routine drives to technical fouls for the crime of existing. The league that begged for mainstream attention for decades finally gets it. And their response has been to try and diminish the source of that attention. It's almost like they resent Clark for being too successful too quickly. The woman who brought ESPN coverage, sold-out arenas, and international recognition gets treated like an inconvenience rather than the savior she actually is. And then there's the broader pattern of how the league handles Clark-related controversies. When false allegations surface about her fan base, investigations happen immediately. When she gets physically targeted game after game, the response is often just, "That's basketball." The double standard isn't subtle, it's glaring.
Nasty, nasty. If y'all don't know who Scott Agnes is, he's a guy he's very close to the team. He gets a lot of access. He's in the practices. He's interviewing the players at practice. He's interviewing the players pre-game, post-game. He is very close with the team and has a lot of access to the players and the team.
Agnes isn't operating in a vacuum. He's part of a broader media ecosystem that seems more interested in tearing down Clark's success than celebrating it. Other reporters have joined the pile-on, from awkward press conference exchanges to columns questioning whether Clark deserves the attention she receives. It's like watching journalists compete to see who can most effectively bite the hand that feeds them. The pattern is always the same. Clark faces some kind of controversy, usually manufactured or blown out of proportion. Media figures analyze her response under a microscope while ignoring the original injustice. Then they write pieces about how Clark or her fans are somehow the real problem. It's gaslighting on a professional level. These same reporters were covering half-empty arenas and struggling for relevance just months ago. Now they have national platforms and increased readership specifically because of Clark's impact on the sport. The appropriate response might be gratitude or at least professional objectivity. Instead, we get hit pieces disguised as social commentary.
The ignorance is loud here, folks. They're only there for Clark. Boy, you stepped in it. But that dark side can easily seep into the team. The Caitlin Clark fans, the dark side. Because they're very passionate about a player, and yes, they've put their money where their mouth is. So these people, these fans, feel invested.
The irony is that these journalists are creating the very toxicity they claim to oppose. By consistently attacking Clark and her supporters while ignoring obvious injustices, they're fostering the adversarial environment they say they want to eliminate. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy wrapped in sanctimonious analysis. Remember the Great Fan Investigation scandal? The WNBA launched a full probe into alleged racist comments from Fever fans directed at Angel Reese during a game Clark's team won by 35 points. The league issued statements condemning hatred and discrimination, implying that substantial evidence existed of fan misconduct. Media coverage treated the allegations as established fact. Then came the quietly released conclusion. The allegations were unsubstantiated. No evidence of the claimed behavior could be found. But by then, the damage was done. Clark's fanbase had been painted as toxic, the narrative had been set, and Agnes had his ammunition for future articles about the dark side. The retraction barely registered compared to the initial accusations. This incident perfectly illustrates the double standard Clark faces. Allegations against her supporters get immediate investigations and widespread coverage. The systematic physical targeting she endures gets dismissed as part of the game. When false claims are debunked, the correction becomes a footnote while the original narrative lives on in articles like Agnes's. The whole episode reads like a setup designed to discredit Clark's support system. Create a controversy, investigate it publicly, let the implications sink in, then quietly admit no evidence exists. Meanwhile, reporters like Agnes can point to the investigation as proof that Clark fans are problematic, even though the investigation found nothing. It's almost impressive how efficiently the league and media managed to weaponize false allegations against the very people who saved women's basketball from obscurity. The fans who pack arenas, buy merchandise, and generate unprecedented attention get rewarded with baseless investigations and articles calling them villains.
Indiana Fever reporter Scott Agnes has decided that now would be the time, now that the Fever have won a few games, now would be the time to attack Caitlin Clark fans. While, of course, and I'm not even going to go through because some of them are really nasty.
Let's talk numbers for a moment because the financial reality makes this whole situation even more absurd. Caitlin Clark didn't just boost WNBA ratings, she saved the entire league from irrelevance. Cities see tourism spikes when the Fever come to town. Opposing arenas actually cheer when she hits shots because fans recognize they're watching something special. ESPN covers her like she's running for president. Before Clark, the WNBA couldn't sell out concession stands, let alone arenas. Now games are appointment television, merchandise websites crash from demand, and the league has mainstream cultural relevance for the first time in its history. The economic impact isn't just significant, it's transformational. And how does the league thank the player who accomplished this miracle? By allowing systematic targeting, enabling false investigations into her fan base, and staying silent while trusted reporters attack her supporters. It's like winning the lottery and then complaining that the check is too big. The reporters joining the anti-Clark narrative are particularly shameful because they know exactly where their paychecks come from now. Agnes built his entire platform on Clark's success, then used that platform to attack the people who made it possible. It's professional suicide disguised as moral authority. Meanwhile, Clark continues handling everything with remarkable grace, while her supporters get labeled as the dark side for the crime of enthusiasm. The woman who brought unprecedented success to women's basketball gets treated like a problem to be managed rather than an asset to be protected. This entire situation represents everything wrong with modern sports coverage. Instead of celebrating an athlete who transcended her sport and brought new fans to the game, we get manufactured controversies and moral lectures about fan behavior. Instead of analysis about Clark's revolutionary impact on basketball, we get articles psychoanalyzing her supporters.
By off social media, do you mean that they don't read the notifications? Because they're all on social media, except for maybe Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell. You want me to believe, Brianna Turner's always on social media. You want me to believe that these players who are so addicted to the drama, who are so addicted to the outside noise, have gone off social media? Stop gaslighting us. We don't believe you. You need more people. We don't believe you. You need more people.
The pattern is unmistakable. An athlete achieves something extraordinary. Media figures find ways to diminish that achievement, then blame the athlete or their fans when people point out the obvious bias. It's not just bad journalism. It's actively harmful to the sport these reporters claim to support. Agnes and others like him are essentially arguing that passion is toxic, success is suspicious, and supporting excellence is somehow problematic. They've taken the most positive development in women's basketball history and found ways to make it controversial. It's an impressive feat of intellectual gymnastics that would be admirable if it wasn't so destructive. The most concerning aspect is what this means for Clark's future with the league. She's maintained incredible professionalism despite facing challenges no rookie should have to endure. But there are signs that patience might be wearing thin. Comments about officiating have become sharper. Body language suggests frustration is building. Clark has options that other WNBA players don't. Her international appeal means overseas leagues would pay astronomical sums for her services. Corporate sponsors would follow her anywhere. She doesn't need the WNBA nearly as much as the WNBA needs her, and everyone involved should remember that fact. The idea of Clark walking away might seem impossible now, but consider what she's faced. Physical targeting that borders on assault, false allegations against her supporters, trusted reporters attacking her fan base, management that won't defend her, a league that seems more interested in diminishing her impact than celebrating it.
Actually, now, you would think that sentence is actually setting up in defense of the Indiana Fever, right? Because when you're on the top of the mountain, when you're the GOAT at the top of the mountain, you are going to get all the arrows. You're going to get all the arrows. This is true in any sport. This is true in life in general. When you are successful, you become a target. It doesn't matter that you might have started at the bottom.
At what point does someone decide the abuse isn't worth it? At what point does maintaining dignity require walking away from a toxic environment? Clark has shown remarkable resilience, but everyone has limits, and the people around her seem determined to find hers. The ultimate irony is that Agnes and others like him are actively working to destroy the thing that made them relevant. They're biting the hand that feeds them, then writing articles about how ungrateful that hand is for not enjoying the experience. It's self-destruction on a scale that would be fascinating if the consequences weren't so serious. So, here's the question that should keep WNBA executives awake at night. What happens when the golden goose decides she's tired of being plucked? What happens when Caitlin Clark looks around at the systematic targeting, the media hostility, the false investigations, and the organizational cowardice, and decides she's had enough? The league spent decades begging for a transcendent star who could bring mainstream attention and cultural relevance. They finally got one, and their response has been to allow her systematic abuse while attacking her supporters. Agnes's article isn't just bad journalism, it's a symptom of institutional dysfunction that could cost women's basketball its greatest asset. The dark side isn't Clark's fan base. It's the environment that allows trusted insiders to attack the people who saved their sport. And if the league doesn't wake up soon, they might discover that their brightest star has other options, and the patience to endure this treatment isn't unlimited. The real tragedy wouldn't just be losing Caitlin Clark, it would be knowing they drove away the best thing that ever happened to them.